Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Community Services Committee meeting of August 24th, 2024 to order. Grimsby is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Haudenosaunee, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara Grimsby stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest? No, seeing none, we will move on to the approval of the agenda. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the approval of the agenda? Okay, moved by Councillor Korstanji, seconded by Member Breather. Resolved that the August 24th, 2023 Community Services Committee agenda be approved. All in favor? Good, that's carried. Moving on to number 5, receipt of previous minutes. 5.1, Community Services Committee, July 25th, 2023. 5.2, Age-Friendly Committee, August 15, 2023. 5.3, Grimsby Green Advisory Committee, August 16, 2023. Can I please get a mover and a seconder to receive the previous minutes for the committees? Moved by Councillor Howe, seconded by Councillor DeFlavio. Resolved that the following minutes be received. Community Services Committee, July 25th, 2023. Age-Friendly Committee, August 15th, 2023. Grimsby Green Advisory Committee, August 16th, 2023. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Item number 6, delegations. We have none. Moving on to item 7, resolutions. Can I please get a mover and seconder to get the resolution on the floor for discussion? Okay, moved by, so this is in regards to 7.1, Councillor Sharwa and myself regarding the film policy. So moved by, can I get a mover and seconder again? Moved by Member Laird, seconded by Councillor DeFlavio. Whereas the town of Grimsby has seen an increase in requests to film in Grimsby, and whereas the town of Grimsby does not currently have a film policy in place to detail expectations of conduct during the film production process, and whereas a film policy will provide a fee structure to capture revenue for the town of Grimsby and any expenses incurred as a result of filming, and whereas a film policy has already been incorporated in neighboring municipalities such as the town of Lincoln, St. Catharines, and Hamilton, therefore be it resolved that the Community Services Department explore the film policy for Niagara Parks and town of Lincoln and prepare a brief report with recommendations for considerations to the Community Services Committee on August 24th, 2023. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Item 8, consent reports. 8.1, DCS 2330, Age-Friendly Advisory Committee, establishing bylaws 2374, draft, and 8.2 DCS 2331 Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee establishing bylaws 2375 draft. Okay, so I've requested to lift the one item for discussion for the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee. Does anybody want to lift any other items? Councillor? Okay. Does anybody want to lift the other item for the Age-Friendly Advisory Committee? No? Okay, so just the one. Can I please get a mover and a seconder to receive the report DCS 2330? Okay, moved by Councillor DeFlavio and a seconded by Member Laird. Resolved that the Community Services Committee hereby approves the following items and that the various consent items be approved on the recommendations as contained therein. DCS 2330, A, that report DCS 2330, Age-Friendly Advisory Committee Establishing Bylaws 2374 draft dated August 24th, 2023 be received, and that the number one, the Community Services Standing Committee recommends that Council approve bylaw 2374. Okay, all in favor? Yes, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we're back to lifting the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor DeFlavio, seconded by Councillor Korstanji. Thank you. Okay, so let's get this started. Does anybody want to speak on this? I have some questions, but Councillor DeFlavio, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, through you. I was just happy to see this come back again. It was something that we established as a town, 15 years ago, and it's a great opportunity for kids to be a part of the community, to experience the leadership of being a part of this organization. I know that because of COVID and other reasons it kind of fell by the wayside, but it's a really positive thing and a really good opportunity for kids. So I just wanted to commend staff for bringing it back. And if there's anything that you need from a council perspective or from us, I don't know if counselors can attend, but I'd love to listen in and just be a fly on the wall to hear what the kids have to say. Some of the things, it's a kind of a civics lesson for some of them because they don't know what's within the town's control and what's not. And, because people will come and say, I want a movie theater. Well, yeah, if we all want a movie theater, but that's a private enterprise that requires an investor to come and build that. But it's still great to get ideas and to hopefully we can act on some of those ideas. So that's just thank you to staff for bringing this back and making it happen.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments regarding that? Okay, so I did. I wanted to kind of get everybody's feedback. I felt like the age range, I just wanted to know how everybody felt about it. Right now, it's, I believe it's 13 to 19. And I can see the lower age range, is a good representation. However, I'm just wondering if 19 is a little, older than we would consider youth. When I looked up the Lincoln's child to youth, I think it was up to, I wrote this down somewhere here. I think it was capped at 16, I believe. So does anybody have any thoughts on the age? Yes, Councillor DeFlavio.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think instead of age, maybe we could say grade 7 to 12, or because it's meant to incorporate people that are still students at either elementary school or secondary school, I think, in Grimsby. When we first put that number out, OAC might have still been around back in those days, who knows? So kids would have capped out at 19 in high school, but that's not a thing anymore. So 18, I think, is definitely the top end of where we want to go. And we might want to add something about being students at a local school or anything like that, up to grade 12 or something like that. So that way, as much as we want university students and people that are to continue to be part of the community, that's not the intent here. So I think I agree with you that 19 is a little high. 17 or 18, I think, would be the top end. Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead, Sarah.
Just to give the rationale for it, Krista Bowie is going to be the staff person working with us, and I know she's done work with us in other municipalities. There could be occasions where you have a high turnover, and there may be a desire sometimes to have the first year of university if they were local, just to build a continuity. So certainly the focus and intention of it is the high school age, absolutely, and trying to balance it with both schools as well that are here. But it just gives that little bit of flexibility if we wanted a bit of continuity, because sometimes you do have a lot of changeover in some of the years, and it's helpful to have that. So that was the reason that we did that.
So I'm not sure procedurally whether this is something for a friendly amendment or if we just, does anybody else have any comments on this as well? Because if I'm one of the onlys, then I'll just let it go. Yes, okay. No, okay. Yes, Member Laird.
I do suggest that older age group is actually very helpful. My experience is that they are, especially if they're local and attending local post-secondary education, and the continuity piece is really important. It is hard sometimes to recruit members to a youth advisory committee, and that continuity is really important. And if someone's doing like a round 2 of grade 12, they might be that 19 years of age, and I would hate to discourage somebody just because they might be a little bit older. I think they can be great mentors for the younger ones as well. So I don't think it needs to go into the 20s, but 19 is fair, and I would suspect you're probably going to get more younger participants anyway, so I don't think you would have a huge number of 18, 19 range anyways, but having those kind of peers, maybe they've, gone through, started when they were 13 and continued, it's nice to have those core people that might be involved in the committee. Thank you.
Councillor DeFabio?
Thank you, Chair. Through you. So I've been involved in, because I'm a teacher, I've been involved in things like Student Senate, which is student council members from every school in the board comes together and helps make decisions on a board-wide level. What I would recommend for staff is that we might consider inviting schools to appoint kids. I know that we want free members, but, also getting a student council member from each of the high schools, for example, or one representative of each of the elementary schools, or whatever staff feels is appropriate. But if we extend an invitation like that, it becomes kind of a, sort of something people want to do because it's a position of responsibility and a position of leadership, rather than something that people are just applying for out in the open. So I would recommend we do it that way and ask schools to appoint kids to it. The only other thing I was going to mention was there's nothing that says the students that we're asking for have to be from Grimsby. And it's a Grimsby Advisory Committee. Now, I know we have schools that are, well, one of the schools isn't in Grimsby anymore, but the schools are schools that attract kids from all of West Niagara. So do we want to say that kids from Blessed Trinity or from West Niagara Secondary School that live in Beamsville and Smithville can still be a part of the Grimsby Youth Advisory Committee? Or do we want to limit it to kids who live in Grimsby? It's just a question I'm asking. I'm not suggesting that they shouldn't be, because if the school's in the municipality, then we might want their opinion because they are part of the municipality too. But it's a discussion I think that needs to be had. I don't want to belabor it. It's just something that I thought of.
Councillor Corstangi?
Thank you, through you, Chair. I do believe it says on the flyer, mayor and a maximum of 20 youth that are 13 to 19 years age and are Grimsby residents.
Sarah, did you want to speak to that?
Certainly the intention is that they are Grimsby residents. I think perhaps we made the assumption on some of the other policies we have being residents, but we can definitely add that in, and that is absolutely the intention, that they would be from Grimsby. Just to speak to the recruitment process, we will definitely work with the principals and the guidance counselors. We may not have them appoint, but at least have them apply. And I will say in the past, they've been tremendously receptive to supporting us in that and encouraging students that they know that will be good contributors. So you can count on that one.
I would just add that I've had discussions with Principal Miller at West Niagara, and he's very receptive and he's very happy to hear that these initiatives are out there, so that's great. Now, Jessica. Okay, so that. Resolve that report DCS 2331, Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee establishing bylaw 2375 dated August 24th, 2023 be received, and that one, the Community Services Standing Committee recommends to council that they approve the draft bylaw 2375. And two, that the Community Services Standing Committee recommends to council that they repeal bylaw 0628 and bylaw 1273. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. No, this one, right? Discussion reports? Oh, yes. Okay, so we're on to discussion reports. 9.1 DCS 2328, Peach King Center expansion and renovation project schematic design approval. Can I get a mover and a seconder to put this item on the floor for discussion? Yes, Councillor DeFlavio, the move by Councillor DeFlavio, seconded by Member Bennett. So I understand that there's a presentation for this, so we'll hear the presentation and then we'll take questions after. Okay, if you'd like to come up to the podium, please.
As they just set up, I'll just introduce the team. This is a really exciting evening for us to be bringing this forward to you, and I can tell you quite an amount of work has gone into this to get us to where we are. It's quite a change from where we started off, and we're really proud of where we've landed. And I imagine our architect team will be thrilled that maybe there's a little less of, can we just do this after this? Although I can't guarantee that. So just going to introduce the team that we have here this evening. We have Jeff Christie from the Colliers Group, who is our project management firm. We have two of our architects here, Adam McCoggan and David Donnelly. And do also want to mention Trevor, who is also doing taking quite the task on with this project, and he'll be speaking to the report as well. So I won't delay it, and I'll turn it over to them, and they'll take your questions at the end.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks very much for having us here today. We're very excited to bring you where we are so far on working on development to the Peach King Center, which we've been working on with Sarah, Jeff, and Trevor, and some other folks here at the town for a little bit. How do I make it space?
Told you this would be easy, and then I lied.
There we go. What'd you do?
I think I was just on Zoom, not.
Oh, okay, perfect. So David and I are at McCallum Saylor, which is an architectural firm just over in Hamilton. We've been operating in Hamilton since 1985. We pride ourselves on working in our local community, so we were very excited when we got the chance to work on this project. I'm a local resident of Hamilton, and David is just down the way. Niagara, right? So far, we started off this project early this year on the understanding that we're looking to make a redevelopment of the Peach King Center, but understanding that we wanted to really look at overall, how does this building fit on the site? How does it really address the community needs that we heard, because Grimsby is growing quite rapidly, a lot of demographic changes. So when we started this project, we didn't just say, okay, we're just going to follow what was in the document that was put out to interested parties, and we're just going to build exactly what's on that. We really started at first principles and started to ask, what is the purpose of this building and how does it function? So we looked at the existing site just up on the screen that's there, where we said, okay, we're doing this development to the building, but how does the building respond to everything else around it? So we didn't just look at the building in sort of an isolated bubble. We started to look at, how does the building address the greater context of the site, the town hall, the ice rink, the splash pad? We really want it all to come together at the end to really enhance that community engagement of this municipal property. Sir.
Yeah, so just to add to that, I'll speak to, Adam spoke to the larger sort of site design ideas. At the core of the architectural expansion and renovation, we have a few elements that we really wanted to keep in mind. So as Adam mentioned, community and culture. We wanted to create a campus setting for all of the facilities that you have on this site. We wanted to provide expanded and diverse recreational and cultural spaces for the growing community. We also wanted to achieve recreation excellence. So we want to enhance and expand the multi-use recreation hub the community will be excited to engage with. So we really want this building to be an exciting place to come play a basketball game or come play a hockey game. Finally, we were always thinking about the experience. We know that there's going to be a vast range of age groups coming to the facility, so we want to make sure it's intuitive and easy to navigate. We want to make sure that upon entry, you can see and know how to get around the facility, you can see where the basketball courts are, you can see where the hockey rink is, you can see where the multipurpose rooms are. We want to make sure the spaces are light-filled with visual connections, as I mentioned, and at McCallum Souther, we're always thinking about sustainability and the future and making sure that we're good stewards sustainability-wise.
We are, as mentioned by the title of this presentation, we're in very early stages of the overall scheme of things in terms of the overall duration of the project. We're right now in a phase that's called schematic design. So the first phase, which was pre-design, what we did is we looked at what are the various different functions of this building? How is it going to be serving the various different needs through the community engagement that happened before we started, but that the town was involved with? So we looked at identifying all the different spaces that are needed in a building like this and appropriate sizes for those different spaces. And then sort of look by, you can see sort of the diagram on the page. We have a list of the various different spaces. So we've got a gymnasium that we're adding that the facility doesn't currently have. We're putting multi-purpose room spaces that can be used for various different programming, both within the town and rented out as well. So we have an eye on both programming that the town has and operational profitability and renting opportunities. We also have renovated an area for concession, all new washrooms in there. We're creating new fitness spaces to really enhance the facility that is there, but overall creating a much bigger building at the end. And then the second image on the right is showing how all those different spaces relate to one another. They're all connected in some way. So we have rooms that need to have, as David was saying, visual connection to understand that when you come in the building in sort of that big purple box, which represents the heart and main node of the building, how can you visually connect and have direct access to different rooms versus things like a housekeeping room that shouldn't really be at the first thing you see in a building. So we start really back at the first principles as looking at what are those spaces, how are they connected, and that sort of informs the design of the building going forward. But we also looked at, as I mentioned, how the building relates to the greater property of things. So on this site, we have a couple different buildings that we're looking at. Obviously, the main focus is on the Peach King Center, looking at doing an addition there that's highlighted just in the strong color on the screen that you see, but also looking at, again, the holistic view of how this building is responding to the rest of the site. So we have a bit of an odd-shaped site, multiple different buildings, multiple different uses. We have staff that are here, public coming here. We have recreation department, parks department, town hall, people coming for all different types of purposes. You've got a splash pad, community green space, so we have children, as Dave was mentioning, lots of different demographics and people's different ages and abilities coming to the site, and there's the outdoor rink. So we looked at how we can enhance the overall site rather than just say, let's put an addition on a building, add some parking, and be done with it. We sort of understand that through the existing site, parking's been added here and there, and there's been various different additions, but really we're looking at balancing the addition of a building, having to add parking, but looking at really the strong characteristics that this site has. It has a lot of mature trees, some different topography in the site that really makes it unique, and some really interesting spaces within it. So we're balancing that need to make a building bigger, add parking, but also creating an interesting experience that people will be drawn to and have a respect for natural systems. So we're looking at retaining as many natural trees as we have. If we have to remove trees because of parking, we're putting them back one for one. We're looking at that both in terms of reducing stormwater control. So with the rain events that were currently happening, we're getting a lot of rain all at once. We're not getting so much rain over longer durations. We're getting a lot of possible flood conditions. So it's really important to us to address that with natural systems such that we're minimizing how much water we're just throwing down the drain. Because someone has to pay for that drain, and someone has to update and maintain that drain and deal with all the water that's going down the line into the pumping system. So we look at those ways to deal with rainwater and stormwater, okay? One of the big ideas that we had when we first started this project is creating that campus setting. So rather than having all the parking right in the center of the site, we looked at creating more of a campus green in the middle of the site, more of a pedestrian-oriented condition that links those different uses across the site, across those buildings and amenity spaces. So in having to address parking, we looked at moving those more to the periphery of the site, bringing that interaction into the heart of the property between those different sites. And again, it's another balancing act that we looked at doing to address all the various different important conditions that we had in the site, and also looking at how does the site address the street. Right now, there's a lot of green over in the yard that has some community groups using it right now, but looking to minimize that impact where no one really likes to look at a parking lot, but we can't always avoid them. So we went through a lot of different discussions about how we can add parking in a thoughtful way.
Great. So now if we look at the ground floor plan, I know it might be hard to read on your screen. I heard that you might have had the opportunity to look at larger drawings earlier. But the big pieces that we're playing with here are the blue is the larger activity areas. So we've situated the double gymnasium on the bottom left of your screen, the community rooms on the bottom right, and those are getting all of the views southwards towards the escarpment and to the park. And the green identified area adjacent to the arena, that's the renovation scope where we're going to be doing some improvements to the existing change rooms for the Peach Kings. And the purple is that sort of heart that Adam was referring to. That is this sort of exciting and dynamic space that is right upon entry, where you've got all of the programs, all of the corners of the facility visually accessible. And we have some sectional drawings that we'll see in a moment that will bring that to life. But really, the idea with the ground floor plan here is to continue the existing sort of circulation paths that were naturally created in the existing facility, the north-south corridors and the east and west, but really expand upon those and make this an exciting and dynamic space that you want to visit. So this is the second story, and again, I'll just identify the major elements. So we've got an elevated running track on the second story above the double gymnasium, and then from that running track, you'll be able to hopefully see into the arena, see south towards the escarpment. We've got a large multi-purpose room that's going to be a beautiful space to rent out. Again, elevated and southward facing views towards the escarpment. We've also included for some administration offices, a change room, and the community room that's between the two existing rinks. We're proposing renovating it for a weight and fitness area. So this is that sectional perspective that I was referring to earlier. So if you can imagine, this is a section cut north-south looking west, and this would be something of the experience upon entry. So as soon as you enter, you're greeted by the greeting desk. You have a beautiful stairway that will take you to the second story if you need to go there. You have a running track above where you'll see people walking or running along. You'll be able to see right into the double gymnasium, right into the Peach King Arena, and then behind you, if you can imagine, you'll have multi-purpose rooms and the other ice rink. The images below, we're trying to relate, again, because we're only at the end of schematic design, we do have a long way to go, but we're trying to communicate the quality of spaces that we're looking to achieve. This is another sectional perspective. So this is cut east-west looking south. And it's right through the double gymnasium. We've got a running track above along the perimeter, and then the lobby space where you can kind of see how that stair, what it could be as we develop it further. It could be a very striking, dynamic piece. And as mentioned before, the sort of southward views and light towards the escarpment and the park areas. This is a south and east facing elevation of the proposed addition, and really should be read as more of a massing exercise. One of the major sort of design moves, hopefully is communicated in this, is that because we're trying to prioritize the southward views, we're putting a lot of glass on the south, but we also understand sustainability. That can be a problem with overheating. So we've done a bunch of push and pulls to create overhangs in areas. We've introduced screening elements that become a part of the architectural identity and feature of the space. And we're really trying to maximize the southward views, but be mindful and careful of overheating and make sure that those areas are properly shaded in the summer to not allow glare into the gymnasium and also overheating for the facility. On the bottom, we've got some of the proposed material elements and palette that we're looking at. We, again, with the holistic approach to the campus setting, we were looking actually at the town hall building for a language and a dialogue to develop. This building has masonry and metal panel, and so those are solid, durable, clean materials. So we were thinking about how those could be used. So some of the legend sort of identifies where we would be thinking about using those elements. Throughout the slides, we've had a number of precedent images that we put up. We just wanted to identify that not only did we look at pretty pictures, but we visited many contemporary and local recreation facilities to ensure that we were designing to the highest standard and quality for the town. This is a bit of a fun page. This is, we just wanted to, again, communicate that part of the final report, you've got a first floor plan, a second floor plan, a site plan. That is where we got to, but it was a exhaustive and fun and challenging process where we did a number of iterations, a number of sketches. We had the markers out and the trace paper, and we looked at many options to make sure that we were proposing the best solution possible. And thank you. That's.
Great. Thank you, David and Adam. So as David mentioned at the end, this has been a long process coming to get to the design that you're looking at today. It was not the first one that was put in front of us, and Sarah and I have been very demanding in getting what we've dubbed the unicorn building. And I think where that really comes from is there's a lot at stake here as a big capital project for the town, and we really wanted to put forward something to council today that we really felt checked all the boxes. And kudos to McCallum Sather, because I think that they checked them all. You want the site to be perfect, you want the interior space to be perfect. There's also, it's an expansion. You're not on a blank slate. You're trying to integrate all these new pieces into pieces that are already here. And I think when you look at the design, they've done a really thoughtful job of making it feel like we haven't had to compromise. You walk in there, you feel like this, it feels like it was purpose-built, even though we're working with some of the pieces that are already there. Before I jump into a few of the report items, I'm wondering if you could just add a little bit about schematic design and how it relates to the total design process, what council will see next as we kind of move through, just for clarity, and then I'll hop back up.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Trevor. So yeah, in the schematic design phase, that's really our first part where we're making the big moves. We're looking at what are the main spaces in the building, as I mentioned, how they relate to other, and looking at general proportions of the building, and then having some initial concepts about materiality that David sort of went through, where things are solid, opaque, and potentially what those materials are. In our next stage, what we're looking at, we'll be looking more at the micro scale of individual rooms. So far, you've seen, there's some lines shown for the gym, so we can understand that it's sized appropriate for a double gym scenario. We'll be starting looking at individual rooms, like individual washroom layouts. How does that look in the size of space that we've allocated? How does, how many yoga mats are going to fit in the fitness studio? And then that's also what we'll be saying, looking at our envelope design and setting up the main coordination items with the structural system. How deep is the structure going to be to make sure we got ceiling heights right? That's sort of the next stage we're looking at. That's in the design development phase. And then after that, that's when you create the drawings that takes a couple months that actually go out for construction. And then you're into construction. We also have a construction manager that's going to be joining our team, but we've got 5-6 months still going into design. So really this is a major step for the project, just to show what the main steps are, what the main moves are and concepts that leads to where we go next as we're refining things going along.
Thank you, Adam. The one thing I will mention, and you're probably thinking this, which is, if you have that much more design to go, when are we going to build this thing? Which is a great question. So the strategy that we've chosen for building is called construction management, and really that allows us to have a bit more of a dynamic approach to construction. So we will actually be doing still some of the late phases of design when we're already mobilizing. So it's not, the whole design has to be completed, signed, and delivered before we're going to see a shovel in the ground. So we will start to see some concurrent work that's happening as we get to the late stages. I will get to schedule in just a minute. A few of the other things I just wanted to address before we wrap up for some questions. As I'm sure you've seen, especially from the last time we spoke, the major moves on the exterior site. And one of the big pieces of that has been parking. And we have been wrestling with parking. We talk about parking way too much. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge on the existing site, and we are trying to balance this beautiful site that has green access, but also we know that most people arrive to this facility in vehicles. They come for hockey games and they show up an hour early, and then they stay an hour late. So we've worked really hard to try to find and narrow a parking number. So we are still on target. 420 is the amount of parking spots we've identified. We will be working with a third-party consultant to validate that. So doing environmental scan, what's happening in other facilities, specifically the items in our facility, how will that relate to parking needs? But we're also trying to do is make sure that we're being as efficient as we can so that we're not overbuilding. Right now, we kind of schedule and hope it works out. But I think we can be a lot more thoughtful in the way that we schedule, having hockey games that are staggered by 30 minutes. So you have this offset of people come in and come out. The worst times for parking in our facility are very short durations. It's 15, 30 minutes of pure chaos, and then it feels empty. If you're the best time to come to hockey is 10 minutes late. You're going to find a spot for sure. So I think we're really trying to be mindful of how we can manage those schedules, not having a basketball tournament, a hockey tournament, and a wedding happening at the same time, so that we're not having overbuilding parking for these very few instances where there's a high need. We're really planning to look at leveraging, Blessed Trinity and perhaps even shuttles, so that when we do have that, one big, the opening celebration or the 5 big Peach Game playoff games a year, we're not building parking just for that. We're building it for the core peak use of the building that we see on an ongoing basis. So you're not staring at empty parking lot that we've all paid for. What else do I want to cover? Stakeholder engagement. So this is a key milestone, and hopefully with approval tonight, we'll be looking to kind of kick off our community engagement strategy. That will be a public open house, will be kind of the Kickstarter of that, but we will be hosting images and content on Let's Talk Grimsby, and there will be opportunities for resident feedback. The one thing I did mention in the report too is, and I think this is important just from where we're at in design, is some things can change and some things can't. So when we're just moving forward in stakeholder engagement, we're going to be really mindful about, hey, we're asking for feedback on the things that we know can be influenced, but some things like budget, construction schedule, scope, some things just can't be adjusted as we move forward, and that gets narrower and narrower as we move through the process. So Let's Talk Grimsby will be our primary avenue for that, but that will be kicked off with that in-person open house, but we'll put the drawings up on the wall and the team will all be there and we'll be able to answer some questions and just have that opportunity for, I think, the community to build a lot of excitement, because I think it feels like this has been a long time coming. We've been here, I keep asking for more money, but finally now we're at this point where we've got drawings available, and you can really start to picture the pieces and picture the project coming to life, which is really exciting. So in terms of schedule, we were kind of wrestling with start dates, how we're going to manage, an occupied facility, and the kind of conclusion that we've come to is the best time to start is to get through the core needs of this ice season. So we're looking at construction commencement in spring, in next spring. And in terms of completion date, we're looking at mid 2025. So that's the current schedule. As I mentioned in the report, we are looking to onboard our construction manager, and that's the person that's really going to start to talk about the constructability of the site, and we'll have some feedback on schedule. Logistically, how are we going to manage construction while we're trying to be open in the facility, and that will really help drive our operational plan. So once that person's onboarded in September, once that company's onboarded in September, we'll have a lot more clarity so that we can start to speak to some of our stakeholders with confidence to say this is exactly what this process is going to look like. So that's it for the formal presentation, and we're happy to tackle any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there anyone from Community Services who'd like to speak to this? Okay, Councillor Howe, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And it'd probably be just a kind of a shotgun approach, gentlemen. As to questions that I haven't been able to glean out of the 140 pages that I just got yesterday morning. Thank you. Anyways, functionality, roof. Tell me about the roof. I can't understand what, if there's a slope at all, or if it's a perfectly flat roof. And I'm trying to understand what type of insulation is going up into those ceilings. And I'm talking specifically the gym, I think, because that's where the real roof component comes into play. Also up there, you've got, and you got to help me out with, what's that word for those things up on the roof? Clears, okay, it's a nice term. One of them, for instance, is right over top of the gym. Okay, I don't know if you play basketball, but the worst thing you can do is get a shot of sunlight into your eyes as you're putting a shot up. That's number one. It's not friendly at all. But also, that's one more thing up on a roof that's going to create maintenance requirements. To me, it's just not functional. It's decorative, and it becomes functional. And even the other one, you control the light. I understand trying to get the day lighting, but there's places for it to be, and I'm strong. My suggestion is that neither of those would even go up there. Just keep it as a flat roof, and if you got a little bit of a slope, like 2-3 degrees, you can manage the water load up there a lot better. I don't know what they're doing. I don't see that. The insulation factors, because I know it's supposed to be net zero. And I can't get a handle on what it's got. And with those clear stories, there's an insulation. You got glass up there, and it's not a very good insulator. So that's to deal with the roof structure. And I can keep going through. I had some patient people this morning helping me or telling me no, but throughout, I noticed on the washrooms, for instance, the washrooms, and this is part of, I think, your envelope, I would think. I could be wrong. If it's something that can be dealt with later, that's fine, just tell me. But, in the washrooms, there's talk about drywall. There's talk about tile. Well, washrooms get pretty dirty. You've got a great product already on the boards of the hockey rink, and they make great wall material. They're just about bulletproof and easy to clean. The floors should slope so that they can go in with pressure washers, when it's necessary, to clean them so that they drain to the center. and it's not big dollars, but if it's done in the beginning, it's right there. You show a live wall. Gentlemen, the live wall is not functional. It's very pretty and, very expensive. And from a manpower standpoint, you've got to maintain it. There's a lot to it. We're not a business on Bay Street with a gigantic amount of money. We don't have the money. And we can do all kinds of mural type work and use local people for that, but it's a one shot, not a constant maintenance on that. Boardroom, you mentioned in there twice, I believe, about wood trim. The boardroom does not need wood trim. It needs to be functional, needs to be clean, right? But it doesn't need, again, the Bay Street treatment to it. The elevator is probably one of the best things in the whole place, with it being enlarged. And boy, if it could even get a little bit bigger, because then it could be used as a freight elevator. The people that have to try to pull this building together and keep it working have got stuff that has to go up to the second floor, or conversely, to come down. And if it's large enough, take a couch. I don't know, you move a couch and sometimes it's got to stand
Councillor
up on
House,
it.
sorry, I'm just gonna remind everybody if we can just stick to 5 minutes, so just wrap up as much
Put
as
the bell
possible.
on me and then I'll move.
I don't want to get the gavel out, okay?
No,
Yes.
that's fine. Is it up? Okay, no
When
problem.
you hear the ringer, it's 5
I will
minutes.
come back. I didn't hear the ringer. Yeah. Is that what it was?
If you wanted to finish up really quickly, then go
No,
ahead.
I've got lots.
Okay. Member Bennett, I believe, did you want to speak to this? Or actually, sorry, if you wanted to respond to any of those concerns, that would be greatly appreciated. I'd like particularly to know about the live wall, about the maintenance too.
Thanks very much. You won't see any sloping of roofs because it's really too early to show that at this stage. Whether the roof is pitched at 2%, 5%, that's something we do in the next stage of design. Really, the intent is to take the stormwater from all these roofs, and rather than put it into a pipe, take it outside, and it's going to feed the landscape, so you don't need an irrigation system, okay? Insulation on the roof, the building there has about this much insulation. You're going to have this much insulation, okay? Very early on in the process, we talked to the town team about what it would take to really have an eye on what's coming down the line in terms of carbon emissions of public buildings. A roof with this much insulation requires a lot to heat, a lot to cool it. When you have more insulation, a very tight, high-performance envelope, which we have integrated into this design, your carbon footprint goes down, the amount of energy you're buying every month goes down. So it's really part of our sustainable initiative as part of the project. So we've got a high-performing insulation not only in the roof, but in the walls and under the floor. The glazing is all triple pane. So it's like R8, R10. It's not your typical R2 that you have in your house or in some commercial buildings. So really have really taken on to up the game in terms of reducing operational costs for this building. In terms of durability of materials, particularly in washrooms, we're still going to be having discussion about what do the washrooms look like. Are they individual washrooms for individual people that are non-gender based? Or is it more of a traditional approach? So we still are going to be looking at those individual spaces coming forward, looking at that micro sort of level about how those rooms lay out, how they function, and what are the appropriate materials for them. Similarly to things like boardrooms, we've had just initial steps that we've put in to get some initial costing that's integrated that shows that we're on budget. Nothing is set in stone right now. Those are just initial steps, and there's more detailed discussion in each individual room about what those finishes are and if those are the right ones or not. There's going to be tests and experiments as we go forward, so nothing is fixed in terms of that right now. The living wall, it's an exciting opportunity, we thought, to really provide a feature in that main public space that people will be occupying with. We're looking at not making a lobby just where you're moving from space to place, but there's going to be places to sit, places to engage and socialize with people. And the living wall is seen as a great space, just like you have a door that looks like wood that might not be wood. People will respond to different textures and different elements within buildings. That also relates to like the amount of glazing we have on the building. People respond to being able to see outside, to see other people, and to be seen by other people. People are drawn to what other people are doing, and that's an important part of it. The living wall is an exciting opportunity that we thought would come in and really elevate the quality of that space. Yes, everything has maintenance, and that's something that, again, is in discussions about all the different finishes, living wall being no different. Yeah. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Adam. I just wanted to add some clarification and some notes on the Claire stories. The idea of the Claire story over the gymnasium, we are conscious of glare, and we want to make sure that we're not blinding anyone about to take a free throw. The idea here was a sustainable design measure, orienting them towards the prevailing winds so that the hot air in the gym can get out and fresh air can come in. These are also elements that we understand are architectural features, and so we have had them costed, and so we know their cost to the building, and we're in the process of reducing them or reviewing them and their place in the project in the future.
I would just add to that, sorry, just to close that off. When we look at spaces like that where you're playing basketball, volleyball, whatever, where glare is important, it's not just for pools, but for gyms as well. We're not just talking about vision glass, where you can see through it. There are glass products that perform better than regular windows that allow light to come in, but you don't see through it. It actually brings the light in and disperses it in every direction possible. So it reduces your electric lighting load. So it reduces your operating cost and brings in that natural light, diffuses it over so you don't have those glare or hot spots. It's called diffusion glazing, and it's a product that's about this thick. And what it is it's like 2 sheets of glass and then an aerogel product inside. And its intent is absolutely to prevent glare from happening or those hot spots when you're looking up in those situations.
Member Bennett, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you for your presentation. I could tell it's very thoughtful and a lot of work has gone into it. And you made a lot of great points. As far as the glass goes, I know that there's been quite a bit of discussion about glass and birds. I don't know if you've thought about that, because you talked about how this glass is quite different, and that's a consideration. And I'm really glad to see that you visited Aurelia, because I know that MRF was specifically mentioned in our master plan as well, and I've spoken to the recreation people there. And I like, the attention to nature, and I guess, I don't know, it's going to be no surprise to people here. A lot of the photos I noticed, a lot of boys in the picture, a lot of hockey being mentioned, and I am hoping for Grimsby to expand beyond hockey at some point. And because one of the things in the master plan is arenas, they're above recommended service levels, community centers are above service levels, auditorium, and below is senior youth drop-in centers, and the number 1 recommendation was the indoor pool. So I know this isn't quite the place for this, and I am speaking to the clerks about what the place is for this and as far as a long-term goal. And I know there was actually a motion to cost a pool on September 7th, but it didn't go anywhere. So I would like to address that at some point as well. And I know that's not within your parameters, but I would like that on the record as being an issue. So.
Did you want to know? Okay. Councillor DeFlavio?
Thank you.
Through you, Chair. So you worried me, Trevor, when you talked about the project management approach and making decisions as we go along, but then you made me feel better later on about how, because costs are always something that are a major concern, right? So this design that we see before us, this takes into consideration the price tag that we have and all of the costs that we've, the budget that has been put forward, right, by council. They're not going to be, other than, obviously, it's a tender process, so there are things that we can't foresee, and we don't know what's going to happen as a result of that. But to the best of our ability, this design is based on the costs that we've spelled out in the budget. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes. So as part of the schematic design process, this design was shared with an independent cost consultant, and they take based on current market conditions and they cost it. At this stage, as you mentioned, there is some variance. So as we continue through the design process, we'll get additional estimates as things start to narrow. But to David's point, we are aware that, we are in budget, so we remain on budget. But if things were to, market condition, price of steel goes way up, we're aware that there's some items in here that we may need to reimagine so that we can stay on budget. We've mentioned many times to us, budget is not there's no opportunity to go up. So if we have any other budget pressures, we're going to be looking at options to value engineer the building to get that down, and removing clerestories would be a great example of that. So as we're doing costing, we're carrying optional items to say, okay, if we did become under budget pressure, here's some things we can, remove. The core of the building is the programming space, the double gyms, the multi-purpose rooms. That's the core, and those are the things that we need to preserve. So if we do find ourselves in budget pressure, as tender results come back in, we are prepared to make changes so that we can remain on budget. But again, we will continue to get cost estimates, and that will narrow as we move through the additional design stages.
Thank you. So through you, Chair, so there are must-haves and nice-to-haves, and we can pair off some of those nice-to-haves if we get to a point where cost becomes a concern. As far as the details of things like flooring, materials, those things that will be reviewed by staff, or will we be discussing them? Things like the track, we're going to look at materials that are friendly on people of all ages, right? Like on knees and stuff and things like that, on the flooring in the gymnasium, because it's not just going to be for basketball, it's going to be for fitness for adults as well. Getting older and having bad knees, I spend a lot of time in gymnasiums, it hurts. So that's something that, if it's cost efficient, I'd like to see flooring that is age friendly from birth to 90 years old as far as materials are concerned. When there was discussion of the living wall, we have experience with living walls. We have two right here that if the windows were open, we could see them from this chamber. Those were partially sponsored, I believe, and that might be an opportunity for us to look for sponsorship for the living walls. There are things like that. Those types of items are things that draw in sponsors. And because our staff has experience working with living walls, I don't think from a maintenance perspective, it's going to be a huge item. I think that they're designed to be mostly maintenance-free, and of course, there are always plants, just like any other living thing. Sometimes plants die and they have to be replaced. But I think long-term, I haven't seen a lot of significant changes to these living walls over the years. When we first started, we kind of had to get the hang of it, but over the years, it's gotten a lot better. The concern that I had about the design from an overall perspective, and I brought it up when we looked at it the first time, was the parking lot adjacent to the houses on Roberts Road. I still don't see any privacy screening there, and those are people who have had a soccer field and an open field next to their home for 40 years or 50 years. And if we're going to make a change, we need to make a change that considers the people that live there. And it's not my ward, but it is something that when I look at a design like this, I want to consider the impact on the surrounding residents, and I think that's something that needs to be considered, the privacy of those homes that back onto that parking lot, because, lights of cars coming in. We have the NRT on demand using the parking lots for parking early in the morning, late at night, up to like 10 o'clock at night. So something that we really need to consider is that privacy screening on that parking lot, and it needs to be included in the costs from my perspective. But that's it. Thank you. I'm looking forward to the shovel going in the ground. Looking forward to being able to watch my grandkids play in this place, and being an old man and being able to play in this place as well. So thank you, and let's get it moving. Thanks.
I will be the last one probably to speak on this, but I really appreciate this. This is great. I was very happy to see this design. It was beautiful. And I feel like this is like our little jewel coming to Grimsby, right? So you did a really great job. Appreciate it. And Sarah and Trevor, fabulous as far as communication and the committee got an opportunity to have a little sneak peek at this. So, we had, this wasn't just thrown on us last minute. So that has been great. So looking forward to this. Thank you. Okay, sorry. Yes, that was, we still have another round of, go ahead, Councillor Howe. Everybody had it. Did anybody else want to speak? Okay, Councillor, no, we're still on our first round anyway. So Councillor Korstanji, go ahead.
Sorry, I'll make it quick. Thank you, through you, Chair. So the fitness room is going to be moved. We're creating a new one, right? Okay. It's going to be fully accessible. So I know that we have elevators and we have everything accessible. And when a fitness room has to be accessible, it has to have room for wheelchairs in the fitness room to be able to maneuver through. So I know when you said that the next thing we'll be looking at space and how many yoga mats and stuff like that, I really want to make sure that, because we do have Parasport Ontario's office in our town, and we do have parasport athletes in our town, that they are able to use this facility as well as our seniors. I'd like to see all of our seniors come. So I really want to make sure that they can use all aspects and not just be able to wheel through it, including the track. And it looks like, from the picture, it looks decent. So I just want to make sure that those things are considered as you guys go forward. Thank you.
Through the chair, so I'll just mention, yes, we're very mindful of that. I actually had a meeting with Jeff Thiessen from Parasport a few weeks ago, and we talked a lot about this. We were actually planning to do a little field trip up to Variety Village in Scarborough to see some of the equipment they have, because the space is one thing, but the equipment that fills it is really going to make or break what we do. So the one thing that I'm sure you noticed in the design is that we are planning to move the fitness center into the existing auditorium and renovate that space. And what that allows us to do is actually have a lot more space than we originally intended, because it's quite a large size room. So we will have more room, and new equipment is part of the scope of this budget, and we will be very mindful that we're getting equipment that fits exactly those needs, and you have the space like you're bang on. I think one of the big things that's really great about the design, look at the second level, the adjacencies for all the different fitness opportunities up there. You've got the walking track on the second level, a fitness studio, the change rooms for fitness, the fitness center. So there'll be a really great opportunity for a hub up there that serves fitness needs, and that's going to be really exciting.
Okay, Councillor Howe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Ceilings, gentlemen, looking through all the information I could see, a lot of them have drop ceilings. A lot of places now, be restaurants or even homes, have got the industrial look, and you save yourself a whack of money with the drop ceilings. I understand that there can be acoustic type issues, but that can be covered up without that. It allows very easy access for maintenance people to get at it. Now, I realize that there are work areas for staff, and yeah, you're gonna, let's put some drop ceilings and make it a reasonably comfortable place to be. But, the other ones, the big workout rooms, they can be the industrial, and I believe that's the term. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've seen them a lot, and it just seems to me that that's the way to go where you can. There's probably a couple that you can't, but for the most part, I think it should be all industrial, and it just saves money. We talk about the money. Nothing that I've brought up changes functionality. Nothing. It is strictly an attempt to build it a little bit different, and if we can save money and use those monies that we save for the real functional part, the things that people need to be able, because when I read through, there's a number of spots, well, that's up to the owner to supply. So that it's not like it's a turnkey by any stretch of the imagination. A little concerned as to 1 minute? We can do it. 1 more minute? Yes. Okay. And there was one more statement in the report, and that's kind of why I'm a little bit anxious, that the project team is committed to meaningful engagement with stakeholders, while core components of the project may not be able to be adjusted through public input, budget scope, timelines. And that concerns me, is when can we have that next kick at the cat? And one more question, what's the dimensions on the gym? I don't see it anywhere.
To the issue through the chair about ceilings, yes, exposed ceilings do have their places. One of the things to keep in mind is when you have large ducts that are in those spaces and structural systems like open up steel joists, they collect dust. And that dust sometimes can't be reachable. And then you have a big clump that falls down on your floor to where people are. So it's an understanding of where they fit and with the overall aesthetic that you're going for. And yes, very much ceilings have an acoustical effect in large open spaces and especially in gyms. Gyms usually, yes, do have exposed ceilings. We do treatments with the type of deck that is above there to absorb sound and dissipate sound, and we do that in walls too. But it's very particular to individual spaces. When you have, for example, an existing fitness room that is surrounded by concrete block walls and a hard surface flooring, or even in the gym because you want a wood floor that has a little bit of give, you have a lot of surfaces that are now reflecting sound. And in those spaces, people understand a little bit that they're going to get noise, but you don't want it to be uncomfortable. So we look for opportunities to include sound-absorbing materials. This room is a great example of, you've got carpet on the floor, you have a lot of glass, but you have treatments on walls and ceilings to deal with sound. Again, we're at the initial steps. We want to make sure we had some wiggle room in each individual space that allows us to put in acoustical treatments and the right finishes that suit that space without saying, yeah, everything's bare at the beginning and then have to deal with acoustical problems when you're in the building. A big part of what we think about is the user experience. Are they going to come just to play basketball, or are they going to say, that's a great space where I can hang out with my friends before, after basketball? It's not just a hockey center. We have a lot of different people coming here. We want to make it an engaging space and an enjoyable space to be at. Did you want to speak to something else?
Through you, Madam Chair. I just want to address the comment because we do a lot of these. The industrial type ceilings are very trendy. They don't save money. So please don't be misled by that. Quite frankly, what happens, and I'm sure McCallum Sather would back me up on this, is there's a lot of work that goes into allowing it to be exposed. So Adam referred to, for example, you use spiral ductwork instead of rectangular ductwork or things like that because it now has to be exposed. It has to be painted. You have to be very careful about how you treat your data cabling, your electrical, your junction boxes. It does allow for access to that, but again, the acoustic treatments, when you start to add them back into place in place of acoustic tiles, which are relatively inexpensive, end up offsetting the savings of not having to put them there. So in my experience and having done these, they're really cool looking and they can make for some very effective spaces, and there's a place for them. But I don't want there to be a misconception that by eliminating an acoustic ceiling, you're actually saving money, because you may not be.
Through the chair, I'll just address the question about the stakeholder engagement. So one of the things we're wrestling with stakeholder engagement is making sure that, I think as a stakeholder, you want to feel that your input's heard. So if somebody asks you a question, you want to feel that we're taking that input and you're giving it back. So we have to be careful about how open we pose certain questions, because some things that can't be changed. What we're really asking you to approve tonight is the general principle of design that you're seeing, which is, what are the rooms going to be? What are their general sizes? What's the general orientation? What's the site design? Those things will not be able to be changed going forward. And we don't want to pose questions to residents to say, what do you want to see? Because then you might get all these other elements that just aren't feasible in the scope and the budget that we have approved for this project. So what the intention of that line in the stakeholder engagement is to say, we're going to make sure that when we're asking those questions, those items are actionable that can be realistically integrated into the project, so that if you or the person or a group of people raise a concern, you actually feel like it gets addressed. And we actually have the ability to address that within the scope of the project. So, for example, like finishes and, we'll be doing a lot of engagement with our users so that, when the gyms are built, it's, oh, the size of this, the lines are too small, or for the general orientation that we need for our type of play, we needed, this type of flooring. And I think there are a lot of things that we can inform with user feedback. It's just going to be that stakeholder engagement will be limited to make sure that it's things that we can control in the stage of the design process we're at.
Council.
Sorry, there's just one last question on the gym size. I sent an email to Trevor earlier in the week with that, so I was just pulling that up on my phone. That's the gyms, each individual gym is 26.6 meters long and 15.24 meters wide, and they have runouts of 1.8 meters. So hopefully that gives a sense of the overall. I don't have the actual overall complete gym dimensions, but those are the two, that's the standard basketball court dimension we're working with. We have two of them, and then we also have buffer spaces all around them to ensure that there's run-out space for them.
If I may, just a clarification. That's for the two cross courts, which are quote-unquote high school-sized gyms, but the long route is supposed to be a FIBA size. Yes. Okay. Do we have that, and what's the runouts on at the very least, on the FIBA side?
Sorry, I don't have the FIBA dimensions, but that we did have that in the drawing, and so we are aware of those dimensions. Essentially, the two courts make the FIBA court, and we do have the 6-foot, 1.8 meter run out around the FIBA court as well.
Just to add to that, so we did have a conversation with the primary basketball user that we anticipate for the facility, and the need for the full FIBA-sized gym size is not likely to be needed. It's really the two high school gyms, which is typically what's needed for youth basketball, which will be our core user. So we're we don't want to put in, the lines and big retractable baskets that might be used on the one-off occasion that we're hosting a specialty tournament or a specialty event. So as we move through this process, we will be kind of having that conversation to say, does it make sense to have that alignment for a FIBA gym, where if we had that one-off event, let's say, an international opportunity came together, we wanted to host an event, you can bring in temporary options. If that's going to be once in a while, the preference would be to do that than to invest in the infrastructure that you're rarely going to use. Early indications from the user is that those two high school gyms that are dividable, you can run concurrent games on both sides, game of practice on the other. That seems to be the preference, but that will get teased out as we move through engagement with our users.
Okay, so just a reminder, we're on our second round, so if anybody hasn't spoken the second time, then now's the opportunity. Councillor Kristanji?
Thank you, through Chair. So I'm going to ask about the track and how many meters is the track? And I just want to comment, it seems very similar to Canada Games Park in St. Catharines, which is a phenomenal facility, and I see a lot of the same qualities and features and stuff like that. So I think it's very impressive, and I think the community will really get good use out of it. I think you guys have really thought of a lot of stuff, so.
Thank you. Yes, me being from Thorold, I'm very aware of that facility, and it's beautiful. The track is 152 meters long, I believe, right now, and through design development, that might shift slightly, but 150 meters, I guess we could call it. Yes. That's right.
Yeah, I think just in terms of the visual, the Canada Games Park is a quadruple gym. So don't quite envision the same size. I want to set expectations. So yeah, the gym, it's not quite that size, but yes, it's gotten a lot bigger with the double gym. And if you look at the second floor, one of the really great moves that Palisades done is the hallway that connects the west pad to the gym is actually track on the second floor. So the track actually expands beyond the gymnasium and over the second hallway. So you're actually getting even a little bit more space than just the gym height as well, which is nice. What's there? Oh, and the width, it's a triple lane. Yeah. 4 foot lanes? Is that right? 4 foot lanes.
Councillor DeFlavio?
Thanks. having a lot of experience with basketball, I can tell you that what you've said is accurate. Those, it's the need for facilities, because even with the closure of Grimsby Secondary School and Beamsville District Secondary School now, and the loss of those gym spaces, every organization, whether it's volleyball, basketball, karate, all these organizations that are all looking to share the same gym space need a space. The dimensions that you said, was it 26.2 times 15? It's 28 by 15 for FIBA and 29 by 15 for professional. 26.2 is 26 by 15 is the high school size gym, and that's more than adequate for almost all of the programming. So yeah, I agree with you, Trevor, through you, Chair, that if you had an event or we had a large event, you could rent the large baskets and bring them in, because those baskets are portable and can be moved. But putting in that infrastructure for the occasional event, it actually goes against what we want to do, because we want to make it as user-friendly and available to as many people as possible. And when you start going lengthwise instead of widthwise, it's saying, well, let's look at options for this way. And what we've done by expanding it to 2 gyms, we don't want to take away by giving the 1 gym option. We want to take that option away as much as possible. We're spending the extra money to make it a better gymnasium. Let's make sure that it's a gymnasium that more groups and more people can use. So you can run a seniors class on one side and a volleyball practice on the other side, and that's perfect. That's exactly what we need. We need more. The size, 1 meter or 2 meters, because you said there's a 1.8 meter runoff, I think, as well. That's going to be a phenomenal facility. I can't wait to see it.
Member Bennett?
Thank you, Chair. I just had a quick question, because I heard you mention something about weddings in this space. Like, where would that be? Like, what, as far as, it would be a more decorated space for that, or I'm just curious?
Through the chair, so on the second level, there's a large multi-purpose room that's proposed. So that would really take the place of our existing Peach King Center auditorium. Yeah, that would be great. So it's on the southeast of the building facing south. So as I mentioned before, we will be moving the fitness center into the existing auditorium, which right now is kind of our main event space. But if you've been up there, and I'm sure everybody has, it's not the most inviting. So we're thinking with the new location, you're going to have windows, you're going to have south facing. We think that the opportunity to expand our rental profile, right now we do a lot of stag and does, we host meetings. We think that with the, how nice the building is going to be and the way the industry is going, and weddings is just an example of the type of facility thing that we could host. You could have a banquet in there. I'm thinking like civic recognition would be a great opportunity, public open houses. The whole ethos behind this all is a functional multi-purpose space that can be used for a variety of purposes. I could see a wedding in there, you could do a stag and dough, you could have a public meeting, you could even run maybe a fitness class if we needed the space. It's really going to be about that functional use that can change throughout the week and throughout different seasons.
So it would have like kitchen access and things like that, you mean? Like receptions or just servery kind of thing?
Through the chair. So from our experience with the Peach King Center auditorium, the need for a formal commercial kitchen that's got ventilation, like a range hood and an oven, is very limited. What we're seeing more and more is people needing a space to have food on site, a fridge, having running water, but a bit more of a space to serve. So it will be a kitchen, but I would say it's more of like a kitchenette type of thing where, if you want to bring a caterer in, they have places to stage, to store, but you're not kind of cooking up the entire meal while you're there. The commercial kitchen we have in the existing auditorium upstairs is very rarely used for that purpose.
Just want to piggyback off that. I know just in the past, I've noticed that the pump house is also booked up quite a bit for showers, right? So I feel like this would be another space that would probably serve that purpose. So that's great, because that's some extra revenue as well. And Sarah, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, not to belabor it, but absolutely. Even things like celebration of life. We certainly have seen a lot of changes to where those things occur, and we've actually seen more of that occur. So it's really building, again, those spaces to be able to service all of those types of functions in a way that uses the space in the optimal way.
Okay, so we'll move on to the resolution then. Resolve that report DCS 2328, Peach King Center expansion and renovation project schematic design approval dated August 24th, 2023 be received for information, and one, that the committee approve the schematic design for the Peach King Center expansion and renovation project. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Moving on to 9.2, DCS 2329, filming in Grimsby. We have a report to consider. Can I please get a mover and a seconder to put this item on the floor for discussion? Okay, moved by Councillor Kerstanji, seconded by Member Breather. Is there anyone from Community Services who would like to speak to this?
Through the chair.
Yes, go ahead, Trevor,
Great.
sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So, filming in Grimsby. I know, Chair, there was a notice of motion at the last meeting, but I can tell you we were already working on it, and I can tell you why. So we've recently been working with our largest production that we've ever worked with to date in Grimsby. It's a children's program called Dino Dex. And this production has been a big change for us. We've dealt with bigger productions before. We had a Hallmark film in Grimsby. We've had some larger scale filming that's very short term. So they come in for a weekend, there's some impact, and then they leave. The Dino Dex production is 4 months. So it's very long. They're set up in a residential neighborhood, and it's been a great learning process for staff as we've kind of navigated this type of production for the first time. And one of the challenges that we've had with it is, again, it's that resident impact. I think film is well known as a good economic generator. A lot of communities are welcoming film into their neighborhoods. There's economic benefit. It's exciting. But we are kind of wrestling with the other side of that, which is the direct resident impact. And as we noted in the report, if I were to tell you the most desirable places to film, from my perspective, I'd be Peach King, or Southward, lots of parking, limited resident impact. Well, nobody wants to film there. They want to film in our beautiful neighborhood parks that have that scenery that they're really looking for their shot. So what we experienced with this production in particular was a bit of a vulnerability in our process, where normally we're managing our own property. So if you want to film in a park in Grimsby, you have to come and talk to Community Services so that you can get that permit. If you want to film on a road and do a road closure, you have to come through the town or the region to get that. So in a way, we're kind of getting involved in the process early. With Dino Dex, they actually went and leased property in Grimsby for the purposes of filming. I mean, we weren't even aware. So there is not any requirement to inform the town of Grimsby of filming unless it's directly impacting our property. But even if you're filming on private property, it does have spillover effects into the community. So what we're seeing in the Willow Park neighborhood is parking, excessive noise, just an increase in general volume in the neighborhood that's not typical for the residents, and there's been some tension. I will say that we were able to get out there pretty early and have some good conversations with the production, and they've been great. So we've had some concerns from residents, and I think we've done a great job managing it, but we were really doing it as not proactively. We were responding, putting out fires where we could. So what we're proposing here is a film bylaw. So this isn't the bylaw. We're proposing to make some quick tweaks to our policy so that we can kind of keep managing for the short term, but to have a bylaw that basically says that the town of Grimsby has the ability to kind of give the yes or no, regardless of the filming location, whether it's private property, public property. And that doesn't mean that the answer we're hoping will be yes, primarily, but it gives us that mechanism to assess the location, assess the impact, so that we're not, again, responding afterwards when we've got concerned residents. So the one thing that we're just trying to be cautious of is to not swing the pendulum too far the other way, where we're going to kind of throttle filming either. The degree to which a production comes and wants to film in Grimsby varies greatly. It could be an indie student film coming from Brock University. We're not looking to make a lot of revenue off that. Their impact is likely minimal. If they didn't ask for a permit, it's likely we wouldn't even know that they were there. And then there's also the more typical arrangement, which is spillover from Hamilton, people filming in Hamilton and find their way into Grimsby, not even knowing that they're really in Grimsby, and find their way to us. And it's, hey, we're based in Hamilton. We really like this shot in this local park. Can we shoot? That's probably the most typical arrangement that we get in terms of requests for filming, and they are increasing. Not in a way where I'm getting a call every single day, but, just anecdotally, when I first started, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I would get no phone calls. And now, once a month, especially in the filming season in the spring and summer, like we do get the odd inquiry. So the film bylaw would be one quick move we can do. Another quick fix that we're working on is just a film website page that addresses what our approach is to filming in Grimsby in an application form, just so that we're getting that opportunity to vet it before before they make that phone call. And then one of the other pieces, and I think it was part of the notice of motion, was fees. So what are we charging for filming? And we've taken a kind of ad hoc approach to that, because the hard thing about filming fees is it's not a one-size-fits-all. Again, on the size of the production, it really changes. If you're a Netflix production or a Dinodex production, you're a larger budget, your impact is bigger, cost should be higher. If you're a one-day production or a student production, we don't want to see those things not proceed. We're not looking to charge big money so that those can happen in our community. So the approach that we've taken so far is actually just opening a dialogue with the production company itself. And, a lot of the times they already have a budget value that they've dedicated for cost. And in our experience, what they have budgeted has been higher than what we would be asking for. So typically, they're coming from jurisdictions like Hamilton and Toronto, where filming fees are very high, and we're kind of saying, well, what's the range we're working with here? And we're finding that the amounts that they're giving us are more than adequate for what we're looking for. So that's the way we've been managing it to date. We are looking to institute some fees. So as part of the 2024 budget process, we will be putting forward some select fees. I won't be a comprehensive fee schedule where every single item that we can think of has a corresponding fee. But one of the things, for example, would be a consultation fee. So if you want to call staff, we want to talk to me or another staff member about, what's the opportunity for filming, that can take a lot of time. It's consultation with the region, consultation with the police, trying to kind of stick handle the arrangement so that they can proceed. If you want to have that conversation, we are looking for a nominal fee to be paid so that we know who we're working with is serious, instead of having all these different agents who are kind of kicking tires when they're scouting. So we will have more information coming back, but this, what we've got proposed here is kind of a bit of a stopgap measure, just so we can keep managing as new requests come in, so we don't have another Dinodex where we're kind of caught off guard and trying to respond at the last minute.
Sarah, go ahead.
Just wanted to add a couple comments. The Dinodex has been very interesting. I will say, and you would say the same, they've actually been really great to work with. They've been super responsive and helpful thus far, and have been doing some interesting things to engage the community. So it's really an interesting learning process, and we look forward to bringing that back to you in a little bit more of a fulsome case study once it's done. Certainly a unique one for us. And I think the filming industry is just really an interesting space because there are some inconveniences and not everybody welcomes it, but there's also been some experiences where people really enjoyed it. And I refer to that Hallmark one. I don't know if you mentioned it at the beginning. If you did, I'm sorry. But people really enjoyed that one when it was downtown. So it can be a really positive experience. It can bring a lot of economic benefits. Like there are definitely some, resources going into the community having them there. So we're just in this tricky spot right now where it's new, it's growing, and we just want to make sure we're putting measures in place that we can continue to really monitor it, but as Trevor said, not swing the pendulum too far that we might be limiting it more than we really want to do.
Through the chair, to echo that. I mentioned Dinodex a number of times, but they actually do have like a little Dinodex fan club. And we do have residents who are actually like, hey, when are you filming? And they're coming to watch, and the kids are really excited. So it's been a mixed experience. I think some people are very excited to welcome them there. But again, that's an example too of we have to be careful when we're assessing these, because you get a warm fuzzy feeling about Dinodex, this children's TV show. If it was like the Die Hard 10, the neighborhood might feel a little bit differently, right? And we just need this mechanism so that we're being careful, because if it's a night shot with gunshots and gore, the neighborhood's going to respond very differently. And we just need this ability to kind of weigh those different things. It's not just this prescriptive, oh, if it's this, then it's that. It has to be kind of this iterative process where we're getting feedback from the production. And I think one thing that'll change too is we have Melissa here, who will be able to dedicate a little bit more time to this as well. Then, I've been kind of trying to manage it off the side of my desk, and I think we can be a lot more intentional about how we're managing it going forward.
Councillor DeFlavia?
Thank you, Chair. Through you. The only thing I was going to add is the process also having a procedure in place like you're talking about here. make sure that there's accountability for the people that are doing the filming as well, because, most of them are responsible and come in and use the sites and don't do any damage. But you also see unfortunate examples where, like Bernie Arbor Stadium in Hamilton, when it was used by the Margaret Atwood show, Handmaid's Tale, sorry. They destroyed the field there, and not purposely, but when you film in the rain and you do other things and you've got large groups. So having this process in place allows us to follow up and hold people accountable if things do go awry. And we hope that doesn't happen, but we have to be careful because we're using public money in public facilities. At no point should this be a burden to staff and to the community. It should be something that adds to it. And we don't want to punish these companies, but we do want to make them pay for what they use in the same way that we all pay for what we use as taxpayers, right? So I commend you for putting this forward, and I think it's a great idea.
So my notice of motion, like, we've already discussed this before. I just wanted to have rules in place and some kind of, accountability and getting some funds back for costs incurred from, filming, like damages. So I really appreciate the fact that you guys went above and beyond and actually came up with the rules. There are, some extra things that we weren't even thinking about. And I like your idea about how you've had these conversations and have actually received more. So that's great. So this totally satisfies my request. So does anybody else have anything else that they would like to say before we? Yes, go ahead.
Just one more note on the Dinodex. So there's obviously the revenue piece from the town's perspective, but I know even Dinodex, for instance, is renting a space at St. Joseph Church. So there is these other spin-offs where they're renting space in other facilities that are not necessarily town-owned. That it does, like they've been using that as a lunch space, I think, for 4 months. It's a great source of revenue for a community facility that typically wouldn't have that. So I think when we're looking at benefits, they do expand beyond just the town of Grimsby when we're looking in terms of remuneration.
Okay, Councillor Flavio.
And in that case, I know that they've been providing lunch to people who couldn't afford it because they have leftover food every day. So that's another community benefit. I don't know what St. Joseph's is making off it, but I know that they offered lunch to anybody who wants to come in after their staff and everybody has eaten. So it's a positive for the community as well. So.
Okay, so resolved that report DCS 2329, filming in Grimsby dated August 24, 2023 be received, and that the updated filming policy be approved. All in favor? Okay, that is carried. Moving on to 9.3, DCS 2332. Lastly, we have a report DCS 2332 to consider. Can I please get a mover? And sorry, this is in regards to, because I noticed it wasn't mentioned here, the Community Services Department information update for August 2023, if anybody's wondering. Can I get a mover and a seconder to put this item on the floor for discussion? Okay, moved by Councillor Cristangi, seconded by Member Laird. And is there anyone who would like to speak to this? Yes, Sarah, if you wanted to start. Oh, actually, I think you can start and then I'll piggyback probably off what you're saying.
Chair, I was just going to offer I can run through it quickly, or if the group is content to just ask questions, whichever you prefer.
Sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, thanks. So just running through a few of the items that are in here, promoting of dogs on leash in parks and open spaces. Hopefully some of you saw that even in our social media last week. The bylaw team has taken on some work in that space along with our local Humane Society and providing some education and also some thank yous to individuals that were leashing their dogs properly in the dog parks. And we have asked that work continues. We flagged some of the parks that we particularly find we have difficulties in. And again, the team's been really receptive to supporting that and ensuring those spaces are safe for people to use. Playground installations and park improvements, just showing that the 2 playgrounds that were slated for this year have been completed at Gage Park and Dunrobin. There is still more work to be completed. Some seeding and some landscaping work is still to occur. And I will also note that hard court for Dunrobin is in the budget for next year. But they've been well received thus far and enjoyed by the community. The Casablanca Waterfront project is progressing well. You can see that work is well underway. They are on track and on schedule right now, and we'll be sharing some more photos of how that is progressing shortly. Coronation Park, I hope many of you had a chance to see it. We are very, very proud of that work, and I do want to give a shout out to Olivia Fraser, our Parks and Open Space Coordinator, for her really incredible eye to seeing that park really brought to life. We've seen so many comments through social media. We've been receiving so much really positive feedback, and just seeing how people are using the space has been really encouraging and exciting. We're sharing with you a new park sign that we have been working on. Our current park signs, which there are some images in the report of, are quite low to the ground, are actually quite expensive to produce, and they just contain the park name only. And so the new sign, as you'll see the mock-up of what that's going to look like, really addresses a number of things that we were looking to achieve in a new sign. It's a little bigger, it's a bit brighter, easier to find. It also contains the address of where you're at. So if you were in the park and you needed some help, it gives you an address to provide. Or even if you are calling to report an issue, it just gives you a little more information. You can see in the design there, we had some fun with that, where it's actually like looking down on Grimsby, so you can see the different sort of topography land layers. And the little pinpoint is going to reference approximately where you are in Grimsby. So just a fun little design feature added. And as well, we will, as part of the sign, be communicating a little bit more information about the park. So hours of operation, a couple of symbols of what is in that park, an area to provide notices, which might be having your dog on a leash or no fireworks in parks, various different things, perhaps as different needs arise. And also having a QR code on the side, which will give people easy access to report an issue or other parks information as well. So there's a couple of different versions of the sign so we can use in different park settings. Some that might have a bit of a laneway into the park, and then some for our larger parks as well. And excited to move that work forward. The Recreational Trails Master Plan has provided a bit of a response to some of the delegation from last meeting. Hopefully that is helpful. And the 40 Mile Creek Pedestrian Bridge, happy to say that RFP is maybe close, or it's right around that time, so that work is progressing as well. And hopefully next month we have some more information about how, specific timelines as to how that work is going to move along. And then lastly, a good piece of news, we've received some funding for a Seniors Active Living Fair in 2024, which is an initiative that our new age-friendly Grimsby will be taking on.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Kristangi.
Thank you, through you, Chair. More comments. I'd like to commend Bylaw and your team for the dog education. I think it's a very good way of approaching it. I think the community has responded. It is an issue, and we've had lots of complaints and incidences. So I think it's great to go out and monitor and educate and stuff like that. So I commend you for the initiative that both Bylaw and your department has taken on it.
I would agree. I find that the education piece is key, because a lot of people don't actually know that others are irritated by it, or they're scared of dogs, or whatever the issue is, right? So sometimes you just need to have that conversation and say, this is what we're going to do here. So that was welcome. I just had some questions about the sign. Now, with the sign, there's 3 options here, is that correct?
Through you, Chair. So there are options, but the intention is to use those options specifically in different styles of parks. So if you're looking at the report, if you see it, the one sort of in the middle is the one that would be more of a neighborhood park. The one is more on a tall post. We have some parks, for example, that you have to access the laneway to get into the park. So a big sign is not going to be possible at the roadside. So it's really just applying that right sign to the location. And then the largest one that's more to the left would be a bigger park like Centennial Park. some of our larger parks, even Ellis Lake Park, that just has a bit more information, a little bit more of a presence to it.
So my personal opinion on this one is I just find with number 3, and I don't know if there's other information here somehow, but it looks like it's very modern and it pretty much only has the QR code, right? And we have a lot of seniors that aren't necessarily down with that technology yet. So I prefer the ones that have a little bit more information and, like the little symbols and stuff. So, what would go on the section here that says notice? Wasn't quite sure what that meant.
So through you, Chair, just for clarification, so the number 3, which is the sign that's on the taller pole, that would be kind of wayfinding into the park, but there still would be that larger park sign in the park. One example would be, and I don't know how familiar this is, but Pinewood Park, for example, the park is in the middle and the homes are surrounded. And so to access the park, you actually go down like a sidewalk laneway to get in. So you would see that tall post sign just to kind of say this is to the park, but in the park you would still have the main sign. So hopefully that clarifies a little bit more what that would be. And as for the notices, that's something that we will keep flexible. So if we're doing a bit of a blitz on reminding people to have their dog leashed, maybe it's that. In certain seasons, it might be reminding people that fireworks are not permitted in parks. It might say no winter maintenance, or if there was a repair being done. The intention is there's a bit of flexibility there to post the notices that are most relevant and current. No smoking in parks was something we often had in our parks. We don't tend to need that sign quite so much, but if there was another sort of current need to communicate something, we might use that in a bit of a versatile way.
That's great. Thank you, Sarah. Does anybody have any questions or comments? No? Okay. Resolve that report DCS 2332, Community Services Department Information Update for August 2023, dated August 24, 2023, be received for information. All in favor? Okay, that is carried. Item 10, correspondence. 10.1 Niagara Region, provision of curbside collection on behalf of producers for residential blue box program. Actually, I will ask Sarah if she could speak on this, because I know a few of us had questions how this came up when we thought it was possibly a Public Works item. So if you could maybe address that, answer that question, and then we'll move on. Oh, actually, no, okay, first we'll get the mover and seconder. Can I please get a mover and seconder to receive this correspondence? Okay, moved by Councillor Howe and seconded by Member Bennett. Resolve that correspondence from Niagara Region, okay, and then Sarah, if you can maybe speak to that first, thank you.
So I believe the rationale for clerks adding it to this is it could have some facilities impact. So what this program does is basically require the producers to manage their own recycling collection, and it wouldn't be done in the same way it currently is being done. So there is some facility impact depending on how that rolls out. If we are currently using a regional collection system, we would have to do it in a different way. I can tell you we already are doing it in a different way in a number of our facilities. It's being collected in different ways, so it's not a significant impact. But working with the clerks, I will make sure we do circulate this in a few other ways, because I do imagine there are some others that maybe are impacted more greatly by this, including our business community, so we can make sure that this gets circulated to some others as well. It is something that is managed through Public Works at the regional level in terms of how they do it, but it's not so much the residential impact. I think it's more the commercial impact, which our facilities would fall under.
Resolve that the correspondence from the Niagara Region be received. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Item 11, other business. Is there any other business pertaining to the committee? No? Okay, so I have a few things. The first item is that our October meeting is currently scheduled, was just posted today for Tuesday, October 31st. Obviously, that's Halloween. So we're just looking for comment about if there is a desire to move this to the week prior because there are 5 Tuesdays actually in October. So we could make this Tuesday, October 24th, if that works better. Yes, I figured you would be up for that, yes. How about we don't? Okay. So if that is okay, then do we need to vote on October 24th? Can we do that? Sarah, go ahead.
I don't know if our clerk is able to confirm. Normally, we would be the fourth Tuesday. I can take that back to double check. I don't know if you happen to know offhand, Jessica, if that's possible, but I believe the last time this occurred, the fourth Tuesday was available. So we could maybe suggest that as the intention, and then I can just verify that is available.
Through you, Chair, yes, I do think we should verify that and bring it back, because I do not want to promise anything I can't deliver on.
Okay, that's fine. We still have quite a bit of time anyway, so that's something we can bring up. And the other thing, so Sarah and I were both at AMO for the last 3 days, AMO being the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and that was in London, Ontario, 2,000 attendants there for most municipalities, big and small, in Ontario. So it was great. We had a lot of educational pieces things that we can take back from the community services. And we were able to advocate for Grimsby through delegations with some of the ministers. We found something really cool from the trade show as well hopefully for the waterfront plan for the bathroom too. So that'll be cool. And we also, I know myself, I was involved with there was an age-friendly seminar as well. So there were a few takeaways. Sarah actually, she was more focused on the community services. Well, I was kind of doing some other things as well. So Sarah, if you could please just touch on maybe some of your takeaways or some of the things that you found helpful as well.
Sure, thanks, Chair. Yeah, it was a really great experience. I think they said there's over 2,000 delegates, so quite a large conference, and really enjoyed the learning and also the networking. You really meet some really interesting people at these things, and a lot of good idea sharing. And honestly, that's one of my favorite parts. When you sit around the table and you meet these different municipalities and you talk about what you're doing, there's just so much you gain from that. So really enjoyed that. The trade show was great. As you said, there's quite a number of products that were actually new to me, which is always nice to see, and some great options for us to look into. There were quite a number of workshops that I attended that were very valuable. An age-friendly one, community organizations one that spoke about municipal agreements, quite a lot that were quite thought-provoking, and again, some really great contacts that are made. We did have the delegation, and the one I was most involved with was the infrastructure one, which I was really pleased to see a positive reception towards our conversation about how climate resilience measures will be built into future infrastructure funds. So I think that was really well received, and I was proud to be a part of that. And I also had an opportunity to do a facility tour actually in London at a community center that they just recently built, and made some great contacts with that and had some fun insights as well. So a really good experience, really enjoyed it.
Okay, so our next Community Services Committee meeting is scheduled for September 26, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. And we have concluded our business, and the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you. Good evening, everyone.